Well, the questions keep coming in, so I'm going to keep on answering them. I've got another 7 questions here today. I never expect to do a video outside in early February, but it's 32 degrees right now. It's supposed to get up to 40 today. Most of our snow has melted here in northern Minnesota. It's very, very unusual, but I guess I'll take it. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this video out in the woods behind my house here, just because it seems like such a nice day to get out and get some fresh air. So let's get into these questions here. Keep them coming, by the way. There's more coming in on Facebook and on YouTube, email, text, everything. You know, if you keep asking good questions, I'll just keep answering them. So here we go. The first question is, how do you manage competition? I see you are on public property using state and county trails. Great question, and yes, I mostly bait on public land. It can be a combination of county and state land. I do not bait in the national forest, although I got a lot of national forest all around where I guide, but I do not bait in the national forest. There's just a bunch of paperwork headaches, and you got to pay a portion of your profit, and it's just absolutely not worth it to me. I got plenty of other places to bait. I don't bait in national forests, but a lot of county, state land, state wildlife management areas I avoid because they have pretty restrictive regulations. You can't attach a barrel to a tree and things like that with lag screws and trail camera boxes and things like that, so I avoid those also. But yes, there is competition, and in Minnesota there's a lot less competition than there used to be because they lowered the number of tags, and so it takes longer to draw a tag. There's just simply less people in the woods. But my philosophy is really to pay attention, and I don't just scout the bears, I scout the hunters, and I have a pretty good idea after a few days of the baiting. Baiting starts 2 to 3 weeks before the season here, and after we've been baiting for a few days, I got a really good idea of what else is going on around me and other people that are baiting close by. And my strategy has always been to just try to get along with people, talk to them and say, you know, I got a bait over here. And sometimes they don't want to talk to you or tell you where your baits are. But I mean, I've just sat down with people on a tailgate and said, here's a pin, this is where my bait is, and have you tried this area over here? And that seems to work out well for me. Bear hunters are good people generally. It's pretty easy to get along with them. So I always think it's better to be talking to people rather than tripping over each other. So I guess that's the biggest strategy for me, is dealing with competition. And there's times when I've just picked up and moved because you know, I just felt like if there's other people that close, I probably got a better spot somewhere else, or can find a better spot somewhere else. I try to work it out before the season if possible, but usually it comes to a situation early in the baiting where you kind of realize you got somebody pretty close to you. At that point, then it's time to work it out, and that's my strategy, is to try to work it out. And so far I've been able to avoid any real difficult confrontations. Number 2, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on bears readily swimming a 50-yard wide river and then crossing a county dirt road to get from one bait to another? Bait A on the east side of the river is only 0.9 miles away from bait B. Are the baits enticing and targeting different bears? I think most people would be really surprised how little any kind of a land feature is a barrier for a bear that wants to get to a bait. And I wouldn't be one bit surprised if a bear would swim a 50-yard wide river and cross a gravel road to get to a bait every day even. That's nothing for them. Even little bitty cubs will do that. If you got baits that are 0.9 miles apart and they're separated by that river and a gravel road, there's a pretty good chance you're going to have bears that will visit both baits. And if you're hunting for yourself, it's usually not a good idea, because you could be sitting on one while the bears are on the other. And so if it was me, I wouldn't run 2 baits that are that close together unless they're separated by even a freeway that has large fencing along it or something like that, that would really protect the bears from crossing from one bait to the other. They can move through some, pretty difficult stuff way more readily than most people realize. Are cell cameras the way to go for bear baits, or should I stick with the regular cameras? I think cell cameras are terrific. They do have a couple of drawbacks. The biggest problem with cell cameras are that a lot of the places that I bait just don't have cell service. I've switched to these Moultrie mobile cameras now that they'll pick up whichever service is the best. And so if I can put them in an area, over here where it's got, there's a Verizon tower that can get to it, and over here a few miles there's an AT&T tower that can get to it, then they'll pick up any of the major carriers. That is a little bit of an advantage because most of the other brands of cell cameras only connect to one service. So yeah, I'm going with cell cameras where they can get service, but that's probably less than half my baits. And so the rest of the baits, those cameras just have to be checked. Another drawback of cell cameras is the fact that the bears will bite the antennas off of them. So you can keep replacing antennas, or you can just take the antennas off or fold them down. The nice thing about these new bear boxes from Moultrie Mobile is you can fold the antenna down inside the box. And if your camera doesn't allow you to do that, you're going to end up replacing a lot of antennas off of them. You're maybe not going to be getting the picture sent to you when that antenna is laying on the ground or the bear has carried it off somewhere. So there are significant advantages to using cell cameras. The other thing about most cell cameras will not, if they'll send you a video at all, they'll only send you a fairly short video, like 15 seconds. And I like 1 minute or 2 minute videos, so I like it that a camera can take a photo and then a video and then save that on an SD card. That's my preference at this point. Okay, I know a bear's nose is amazing and you can't fool it. I also don't think you can completely eliminate your human scent, but I see you consistently using scent killing products. Give me your thoughts on this. Are scent elimination products worth it? So I did a complete video on this that's on this channel if you want to go back and get more details, but I'm just going to give you the basics here. First of all, the fellow that asked this, he used the term scent elimination products. He starts out by saying you can't completely eliminate your human scent, but then he calls them scent elimination products, which to me is the wrong thing to call them. You'll hear me calling scent killer, and I use it all the time. I'm convinced that it works and it's helpful, but I call it scent reduction or scent control products. I do not believe you can completely eliminate human scent, but you can reduce human scent to the point where there's a significant advantage in keeping your scent down. Think of it like the pieces of a pie, where you have this pie, and that is all of the package, I guess, that these bears, when they come to the bait, they see things, they hear things, they smell things, they know about everything that's part of the package. And if you look at, just make it like a pie chart, and if one section of it is smells and one section of it is sounds and everything like that, the smaller that you can make that slice of pie that's the human scent, the better off you're going to be. And that's the way I like to look at it. And so that's why I really do believe that scent control products are important and effective, particularly when you're hunting, but I also use them often when I'm baiting, just to reduce human ground scent and so forth. Do you have thoughts on bothering the bears while putting up the stands after they've been there? Yes, I do, and I probably could do an entire video on this, because this is a pretty important thing. And what I have found is that you can disturb the bears, especially bears that are nearby, and a lot of times bears will lay up within 100 yards or so of your bait, and it's really hard to put up a tree stand without making enough noise that's going to concern the bears or spook them or whatever. So if I was just baiting for myself, what I like to do is just put up the stand when I put out the bait. But as a guide, I only put up stands when I know I'm going to hunt that bait. And so, I might have last year I had 7 clients the first week, and I had 15 baits out, so I didn't need 15 stands up. I knew I wasn't going to use them all. So after the baits were going really good, and I got this bait, it's got multiple bears on it, it's got some nice big shooters, I'm definitely going to use that. And I put up the stands about a week before the season. I would say that there are some negatives to that, but the other issue to that would be putting up stands on all these baits that you're not even going to use the stand. Would that be better? Yes, if it wasn't a whole lot of work, and I'm typically, paying a guide to do that. So for a guy that's just hunting for yourself, I would say put up the stand when you put the bait out. If you're sure you're going to hunt that bait, put it up right away, you're better off. I've also got a video on this channel. It's called The Pattern that you should watch. It's about when the bears first find your bait and putting up a stand immediately and hunting right away. And if you're traveling to hunt in a different state or something like that, or you're on a DIY hunt where you put out the bait, bear just finds your bait. This is what I've done in the western states and in Ontario and so forth, and that pattern really works, so I'd suggest you watch that video too. In one of your videos, I noticed you go down rather heavily used ATV trails, and then you said you only walk in 75 yards. Is not that an issue for guys just ripping up and down the trails on ATVs and bothering the bears? Yes, in some cases my baits are fairly close to well-used ATV trails. 75 to 100 yards is pretty common, but in most cases I'm getting off the main ATV trail back in before I walk that last 50 to 100 yards into the bait. There's only a couple of my baits that are within 75 yards of an ATV trail that gets a lot of use. It doesn't seem to bother the bears very much unless somebody happens to stop, and maybe a group of ATVs come through and they stop and start talking or something like that. Usually the bears are accustomed enough to the noise of the ATVs that if 4, 5, 6 of them just go ripping by, it doesn't matter. And I've sat on baits, have had some of my clients been sitting on baits when ATVs went by on a trail 75 yards away, and in some cases the bears didn't even look up. In other cases they just kind of stopped, and you could just kind of watch as they were moving their head as the sound went by. So generally it's not a problem. Obviously the farther away you can get from them, better. When you're baiting almost every day, it's hard to hide what you're doing, and you don't want to leave a lot of sign of where you're going back into and have somebody go by on an ATV and say, oh, I wonder what's down that trail, let's walk back in there and look at it. We don't want that. Okay, how often are you baiting your baits? I'm getting conflicting information about baiting every other day, every day, or every 5 days. This is a pretty simple answer to a complex question, and that is always keep in mind that you want to have some bait there every time the bears come to visit. That's just my strategy, and it's been for quite some time, and it's been very successful for me. Is that if you say, how often are you baiting? I'm just going to tell you, I'm baiting often enough to make sure that there's always bait there. And if you can only bait on the weekends, that means you've got to put a lot of bait out. If you can bait over long periods of time, like for example in Wisconsin, when you can start baiting in April and the season isn't until September, you certainly don't have to bait every day all summer. But when it gets close to the season, then I would be getting to that bait as often as you have to make sure that there's bait there. And in Wisconsin you can only use a couple of buckets of bait at a time, which means you're probably going to be baiting every day if you got 2 or 3 bears on the bait. That's the key to it. So that's a pretty, like I said, it's a complex question that I've done other videos on, but the simple answer is just make sure that every time a bear comes to the bait, he gets rewarded with something good to eat. So anyway, that's enough questions for this video. There's a couple more on this sheet that I'll probably just do the next time. Really appreciate your comments and feedback. If you agree or disagree, just leave a comment below. Thank you so much for being a part of this channel, and we'll see you on the next video.